On December 8, 1941, just hours after Pearl Harbor, Japanese forces attacked British-controlled Hong Kong. The colony, defended by British troops, Indian regiments, Canadian soldiers, and local Chinese units, was suddenly thrust into total war. The Japanese army was experienced, ruthless, and overwhelmingly stronger. Hong Kong was isolated, its defenses thin. Civilians believed the colony would resist only briefly, but no one expected what would follow. Over the next 17 days, Hong Kong would descend into chaos, terror, and unimaginable suffering. What began as a military battle would become one of the darkest Christmas stories in modern history. Hong Kong's defenders were outnumbered. Around 14,000 Allied troops faced roughly 50,000 Japanese soldiers. Britain had sent Canadian battalions, the Winnipeg Grenadiers and Royal Rifles of Canada, hoping to strengthen morale. Indian troops fought bravely on the front lines. Local Chinese volunteers resisted fiercely despite limited support, but supplies were short, medical facilities overwhelmed, and air support non-existent. The Japanese controlled the skies and seas. Still, the defenders refused to collapse immediately. They dug in, determined to slow the advance. Each day brought heavier fighting, more casualties, and rising pressure. They were fighting not only for territory, but for the people trapped behind the lines. The first main defensive position, the gin drinkers' line, stretched across the new territories. Many believed it could hold for weeks. It lasted only days. Well-trained Japanese troops broke through quickly, conducting night attacks and flanking maneuvers. By mid-December, the line was gone. Allied forces were forced to retreat across the harbor. Civilians watched in horror as the Japanese flag advanced closer to their homes. The fall of Kowloon soon followed. Looting began. Families fled. Fear spread through the colony like wildfire. The message was clear: Hong Kong was collapsing, and the worst was yet to come. With Kowloon lost, the final stand moved to Hong Kong Island. Japanese artillery relentlessly shelled the city. Buildings collapsed. Fires spread. Hospitals overflowed. Refugees crammed into any shelter they could find. Allied troops prepared defensive sectors while Japanese soldiers planned their final assault. The defenders still hoped reinforcement might come, but none would. Japan launched its amphibious invasion, storming the island under heavy fire. Some Japanese units suffered badly, but their numbers and momentum could not be stopped. Soon, fighting raged across key locations such as North Point, the hills, and strategic gaps that decided everything. One of the most brutal engagements took place at Wang Nai Chung Gap, a critical point controlling the island's center. Canadian, British, and Indian troops fought desperately to hold it. The terrain turned into a battlefield of grenades, machine guns, and close combat. Many defenders were surrounded. Casualties were severe. The Japanese eventually seized the position, splitting Allied defenses in two. This moment was a turning point. Communication fractured. Command became difficult. Yet soldiers continued resisting street by street. Hong Kong was bleeding. The civilian population now stood directly in the path of invading forces. By December 23, 1941, Allied commanders knew the situation was hopeless. Ammunition was dwindling. Medical supplies were nearly gone. Many soldiers had not slept properly in days. Civilians were starving, trapped, and terrified. Still, the defenders kept fighting. Canadian soldiers earned a reputation for incredible bravery, fighting against overwhelming odds. Indian regiments resisted to their last positions. Local volunteers risked their lives protecting neighborhoods. But courage alone could not stop the inevitable. The Japanese advance was relentless. On December 25, Christmas Day, the final decision was forced upon Hong Kong. On December 25, 1941, Christmas Day, Governor Sir Mark Aitchison Young surrendered Hong Kong to Japanese General Takashi Sakai. The day became forever known as Black Christmas. To many civilians, surrender meant safety. They believed the fighting was finally over. They hoped the killing would stop. They believed the worst was behind them. They were tragically wrong. What followed would prove far more horrific than the battle itself. The collapse of order unleashed brutality. Law disappeared. Humanity disappeared. The conquerors now controlled the city, and terror began immediately. Instead of lawful occupation, chaos erupted. Japanese soldiers stormed neighborhoods, hospitals, schools, police stations, and residential areas. Civilians were dragged from homes. Young women were assaulted. Looting was rampant. Those suspected of resisting were executed on the streets. Anyone thought to be connected to the British or resisting forces became targets. Fear spread faster than gunfire. Entire districts experienced terror. For many families, Christmas Day became the day everything ended. Safety, hope, dignity, and life itself. One of the most disturbing atrocities occurred at St. Stephen's College, which had been converted into a hospital. Japanese soldiers entered, searching for Allied wounded. Instead of respecting medical protection, they violated it. Doctors were beaten. Patients were bayoneted in their beds. Nurses and medical staff faced horrific abuse. The attackers showed no mercy, no restraint, and no humanity. The massacre at St. Stephen's became one of the darkest wartime crimes in Hong Kong's history. It symbolized the collapse of every wartime rule meant to protect the defenseless. Across Hong Kong, civilians suffered brutally. Women were attacked, elderly residents beaten, houses ransacked. Many civilians disappeared. Some historians describe the days following the surrender as an uncontrolled wave of violence. Fear silenced witnesses. The population had no protection. Many attempted to hide. Others tried to escape. Some begged for mercy that never came. Christmas, a time associated with peace, became a period of nightmares and mourning. Families who had once celebrated together now faced grief, hunger, and constant terror. Captured Allied soldiers faced harsh imprisonment. Canadians, British, and Indian troops were sent to POW camps where starvation, disease, forced labor, and abuse became daily realities. Many would die in captivity. Survivors later described constant hunger, brutal discipline, and hopelessness. They held on to memories of home, families, and Christmas far away to survive. Their suffering did not end when the guns went silent. For them, the war continued behind barbed wire fences. Japanese occupation of Hong Kong lasted from December 1941 to August 1945. The city suffered famine, economic collapse, forced labor, and political repression. Many civilians fled. Others endured constant fear. Hospitals struggled. Schools closed. Daily existence was dominated by uncertainty. Yet, even during darkness, acts of quiet bravery occurred. Local Chinese networks helped families escape. Doctors risked punishment to treat the sick. Ordinary people helped neighbors survive. Humanity flickered like a weak candle, but it never fully extinguished. For survivors, Christmas was never the same. December 25th did not remind them of celebration, lights, or peace. It reminded them of screams, gunfire, and loss. Black Christmas became a permanent scar in Hong Kong's memory. Families mourned loved ones lost that day. Entire communities carried trauma long after the war ended. Christmas is usually a symbol of hope. In Hong Kong in 1941, it became a symbol of tragedy. While Hong Kong suffered, the wider war raged across Asia and the Pacific. Battles erupted in Malaya, Singapore, the Philippines, and beyond. But Hong Kong remained a powerful early warning of what Japanese occupation could bring: extreme brutality toward prisoners and civilians. The world would eventually learn similar stories in other places. The suffering in Hong Kong was not isolated, it was part of a much larger human catastrophe. Japan finally surrendered in August 1945. British forces returned. Prisoners were released. Civilians slowly tried to rebuild shattered lives. But nothing erased the trauma. Memorials, testimonies, and historical records keep the memory alive so the world does not forget what happened. Historians estimate tens of thousands suffered during and after the fall. Many stories were never fully recorded, yet one truth remains clear. Christmas 1941 was not a holiday in Hong Kong. It was a nightmare that history must never ignore.